Hashtag every civilization that ever peaked followed the same 3 rules. We're breaking all of them. Athens lasted 200 years. Rome lasted 1,000. The Dutch peaked for 100. And every single one collapsed for the exact same 3 reasons. Asterisk asterisk. And right now, in 2026, we are breaking all 3 at the same time. Let that sink in for a second. Because when I finished this book, I couldn't sleep for 2 nights. The book is Peak Human: What We Can Learn from History's Greatest Golden Ages, by Johan Norberg. He's the author of Progress and Open, 2 massive bestsellers on why the modern world got so rich so fast. His entire career has circled one question: when does a civilization actually peak? And why do they always fall? He picked 7 of the greatest golden ages humanity has ever produced: ancient Greece, the Roman Republic, the Abbasid Caliphate, Song Dynasty China, Renaissance Italy, the Dutch Republic, and the Anglo world from industrial Britain to modern America, and he pulled out a pattern. 3 codes. 3 ingredients. Every peak civilization had them. Every collapse lost them. And here's why this book is exploding right now in 2026. With AI moving faster than we can process, geopolitical fires everywhere, and a wave of populism sweeping every major democracy, everyone is quietly asking the same question. Are we living at the end of our golden age? Or the beginning of the next one? Today I'm walking you through Norberg's answer. 7 civilizations, 3 codes, and 1 warning that should be tattooed on every world leader's forehead. Let's go. Part 1. The Ancient Blueprint: Greece, Rome, Baghdad, Song China. Norberg starts with the 4 ancient peaks. And what's shocking isn't how different they were. It's how similar. Ancient Greece, the invention of thinking. 5th century BC. A tiny mountainous peninsula. Barely any farmable land. Yet in one lifetime it produces Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, democracy, geometry, the scientific method, and theater. How? 3 ingredients. First, 1,000 small city-states competing. Not one empire. A messy patchwork where ideas could travel, get tested, and beat other ideas. Second, truth over tradition. Aristotle said, "I love Plato, but I love truth more." That single sentence is the birth certificate of Western science. Curiosity beats authority. Third, trade. Greece couldn't grow enough wheat, so it had to trade. But wheat takes 1 year. Olives, Greece's cash crop, take 20. If a war breaks out, your entire life's work burns. So the Greeks became long-term thinkers, traders, negotiators. That's why the olive branch became the universal symbol of peace. It's not poetry. It's a farmer with a 20-year investment begging you not to burn his field. But then it collapsed. Athenian direct democracy lasted less than 200 years. It slid into populism. It voted to execute Socrates. The moment a culture loses confidence in its own values, decline begins. Remember that. Comes back at the end. Rome, the art of stealing everything that works. If Greece was the source, Rome was the amplifier. And Rome's superpower was one word: openness. Athens' fatal flaw was xenophobia. It wouldn't grant citizenship to foreigners, not even to Aristotle. Rome went the other way. Anyone useful, engineer, general, philosopher, slave, could rise. Their people, their gods, their tech all got absorbed. Rome had one rule. If someone else does it better, we drop our version and copy theirs. No pride. No, not invented here. That's how a city-state on the Tiber ran the Mediterranean for 1,000 years. And here's the piece Americans should sit with. The founders studied Rome obsessively, especially how it built alliances through citizenship and inclusion, not conquest. That model is exactly what Washington inherited. Rome's DNA runs through modern America. Remember that phrase, Rome's DNA. It's going to come back in 90 seconds when we hit the Bismarck quote that changed how I see the 20th century. Asterisk asterisk. Baghdad, the empire everybody forgot. While Europe was drowning in the Dark Ages, the Abbasid Caliphate in Baghdad became the intellectual capital of Earth. 3 things drove it. Religious openness. Jews, Christians, Zoroastrians, foreigners, all welcome. Their principle: knowledge has no borders. Wisdom has no race. Trade. The Arabs controlled the Red Sea, the Persian Gulf, and the Silk Road. They were the first true global traders. Fun fact: one of the oldest mosques in China was built by Arab merchants in Xuanzhou during the Song Dynasty. That's how far their reach went. The first great translation movement. Everyone talks about the Renaissance translating Greek and Roman works. But the Renaissance only had those works because Arab scholars had translated and preserved them 500 years earlier. No Baghdad, no Renaissance. Full stop. And these weren't passive translations. Arab scholars debated, questioned, extended. They imported Indian numerals, why we call them Arabic numerals today. They pushed experimental science. Hypothesis, test, verify. At its peak, Baghdad had over 600 bookstores. Reading wasn't a rich person's hobby. It was a civilization inhaling knowledge. But Baghdad fell too. It never inherited democratic instincts. Power stayed autocratic. Mercenary armies seized land, ruined agriculture. And when Arabs began to doubt their own openness, the Golden Age ended. Song China, the greatest what-if in history. Norberg chose Song China on purpose, because most Westerners don't realize how staggering it was. Forget militarily weak. Look at the economics. Private land, a roaring market, global trade with tariffs as a top national income source, explosive urban commerce, and an intellectual class so influential they co-ruled with the emperor. But here's the tragedy. Song China had every ingredient for the Industrial Revolution 700 years before Britain. Gunpowder, printing, the compass, advanced metallurgy, brilliant minds like Sun Qua documenting the science of the age. So why didn't it happen there? Norberg's sharpest thesis. Song China never connected the scholar to the craftsman. The educated class looked down on people who worked with their hands. The guy with the theory never talked to the guy at the forge. Ideas stayed in libraries. Techniques stayed in workshops. They never fused. Britain, 700 years later, did the exact opposite. And that made all the difference. Hold on to this, it's the second of the three codes. Part 2, the modern blueprint. Renaissance, Dutch, British, American. The Renaissance, art, money, and the birth of the modern class. Italy inherits the Arab translation movement and runs with it. But the real revolution wasn't the paintings. It was three quiet shifts. 1. Patronage. The Medici bankrolled Michelangelo and Leonardo, and in doing so, climbed from bankers to nobility. A new commercial elite replaced the old blood aristocracy as the driver of culture. 2. Wealth replaces birth. For the first time in European history, being rich mattered more than being born right. Culture became competitive, aspirational, look-at-me consumption. 3. The big one. Scholars and craftsmen finally started talking. Painters and sculptors organized into guilds. Schools opened. Techniques got shared, debated, refined. Art wasn't a lonely genius in a tower. It was a workshop of hands and heads working together. This was the crack in the wall that Song China never made. And it laid the groundwork for what was next. The Dutch Republic, the David that beat every Goliath. The Dutch story is my favorite. On paper, it makes no sense. Spain and Portugal were building colonial empires, stealing gold, conquering continents. The Netherlands said, no thanks. They went the opposite direction. Openness, trade, small footprint, big network. They built trading posts, not colonies. They proved you could be a superpower through commerce, tolerance, and free markets, not by owning land. Amsterdam became the intellectual capital of Europe, the center of the Republic of Letters. A continent-wide network of thinkers arguing, testing, building on each other's work. Religious refugees fled there. Books banned everywhere else got printed there. They also invented the modern art market. Painters no longer painted for kings, they painted for the middle class. That's why Dutch art filled with everyday scenes. Vermeer painting a woman pouring milk. Art became personal, domestic, alive. The Dutch Golden Age lasted about 100 years. It ended when religious tolerance shrank, ideological diversity collapsed, and stronger neighbors rose. The torch passed. Britain, the revolution that never ended. Every historian asks, why did the Industrial Revolution happen in Britain? A cold, foggy island on the edge of Europe? Norberg's answer is a chain of three. 1. Britain copied the Dutch operating system. Openness, trade, free press, religious tolerance. But as an island, Britain got something the Dutch never had. Safety. No neighbor could invade tomorrow. Ideas had room to grow. 2. The penny universities. Coffee traveled from the Arab world to London. And for a penny, anyone could sit down and argue science, politics, business, engineering with strangers. Merchants, scientists, inventors, philosophers, all mixed together over coffee. Newton's ideas, Adam Smith's ideas, the seeds of Lloyd's of London and the stock exchange, all cooked in those caffeine-soaked argument clubs. London became the world's first true financial center partly because of them. 3. The government stayed small on purpose. An island doesn't need a giant land army. It needs a navy. And a navy runs on technology and skilled specialists, not human waves. So the state poured resources into technical innovation, steel, coal, engines, and let the market handle almost everything else. The merchant class exploded. But the deepest reason? Francis Bacon's rule. Get the people who understand things to talk to the people who make things. The scholar and the craftsman finally, permanently, married. That fusion is what Song China missed, what the ancient world missed, and what launched the modern era. And then it crossed the Atlantic. Bismarck allegedly said the most important fact of the 20th century in 4 words: North America speaks English. America wasn't just a colony. It became the biggest experimental laboratory of British ideas humanity has ever run. 2026 marks its 250th anniversary, and from day one, ordinary men voted. From day one, its founding ideas came straight from Athens and Rome. And America added its own twist: federalism and decentralization. Inventors could move freely between states. Bad laws? Move. That's why Silicon Valley became the innovation heart of the world. Not because California had industrial history, but because it didn't. No entrenched interests. No old economy locking down the new one. Part 3. The 3 codes, and why we're breaking all of them right now. Zoom out. 7 civilizations. Thousands of years. Norberg says every single one ran the same 3 codes. Code 1, openness and inclusion. Human nature has 2 competing instincts. The merchant, who welcomes strangers because they bring value, and the tribalist, who builds walls because strangers feel threatening. Every golden age chose the merchant. Rome grew by absorbing foreign talent. Baghdad ran on knowledge has no borders. The Dutch became Europe's center by taking in the refugees everyone else kicked out. Openness needs rule of law, free markets, free thought. Break any leg of that stool and the whole thing wobbles. Code 2, class fusion. The single biggest difference between modern golden ages and ancient ones? Scholars and craftsmen started working together. Break the wall between the guy who reads books and the guy who builds things. Theory meets practice. University meets workshop. That fusion is what the Renaissance started, the Industrial Revolution perfected, and America industrialized at scale. The result? A society that shifts from birthright to merit, where anyone with a working idea can climb. Code 3, decentralization. And this is the one that hurts. Every golden age dies the same way. Norberg calls it the Socrates moment. When a society stops trusting open debate, enforces orthodoxy, and picks control over curiosity. Nobel economist Joel Mocher, who won the 2025 Nobel Prize, calls it Cartwright's law. Most societies stay technologically creative for only a short window before they clamp down. Successful golden ages fight this by decentralizing. Europe's fragmentation made the Republic of Letters possible. A thinker band in Paris just moved to Amsterdam. Britain's small government left innovation to markets. America's federal system gave inventors a 50-state playground. Centralization kills golden ages. Every single time. Now here's where it stops being a history lesson. Because look where we're actually standing. Asterisk asterisk. Closing, are we ending ours? We're starting the next one. Asterisk asterisk. So here we are. 2026. AI accelerating faster than we can process. Geopolitical fires everywhere. Populism sweeping democracies. Immigration crises. Trade wars replacing free trade. Norberg's warning is simple, and it's why this book is scaring so many people. Every collapse followed the same script. Elites got scared of change. They defended tradition and orthodoxy. They shut the doors. They killed unpredictability. And the golden age quietly ended. Look at that list, then look at your newsfeed. It's uncomfortable. But Norberg is not a doomer. His real message: we are not fated to collapse. We are just at the fork. 2 things we must do. 1. Reject xenophobia and rigidity. When technology disrupts, humans naturally circle the wagons. We protect incumbents. We fear outsiders. But that's exactly the reflex that killed Baghdad, killed Athens, killed Song China. Governments today have to actively break the grip of vested interests. Otherwise innovation dies. 2. Reclaim optimism and curiosity. Golden ages ride optimism. Right now, it's easier than ever to slip into a "the world is dangerous" mindset and give up on exploration. Norberg wants us to be Athenians, not Spartans. Curious, not defensive. Trading, not walling. And here's the line stuck in my head since I closed the book. Progress is not a natural law. It's a choice a civilization makes every generation. And when it stops choosing, the golden age is already over. The citizens are just the last to notice. Joel Moker calls the Industrial Revolution a revolution that never ended, because a network of thinkers kept the fire alive across borders and generations. That's how modern civilization broke the ancient curse of peak and collapse. But that fire only burns as long as we keep feeding it. So my closing question for you, I want to hear it in the comments. Look at the 3 codes. Openness, class fusion, decentralization. Which one do you think our generation is failing hardest at right now? And can we fix it in time? Drop your answer below. I read every reply. If this hit you the way it hit me, this book is Peak Human by Johan Norberg. Worth every page. Because 10,000 years from now, someone will write the history of this decade. And the only question that matters is this. Athens got 200 years. Rome got 1,000. The Dutch got 100. How long will we get? That's not history's choice anymore. It's ours. Asterisk asterisk. Was 2026 the last chapter of our golden age, or the first chapter of the next one? See you in the next video.